want to extend our deepest thanks and appreciation to PSITE National, headed by Dr. Neil Balba and the rest of the Board of Directors, for their wholehearted support. The same gratitude is given to CHED MIMAROPA region, led by no less than Attorney Joselito Aliswag and his staff for their untiring help. Without them, PSITE MIMAROPA will not be possible. Thank you so much. So at this juncture, let us all call our PSITE MIMAROPA Secretary, Sir Larry Caduada Jr., to introduce our second speaker for today.
Thank you so much once again, Professor Mary Chris, for that cue. At this point in time, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce to you our second resource speaker for today's webinar. Ms. Mary Joy Abueg is an Assistant Professor 3 of Palawan State University. She has previously served as a Dean of the College of Information and Communications Technology at Holy Trinity University. At Palawan State University, she previously served as a chairperson of the Computer Science and Information Technology Department, ICT Director of the Information and Communications Technology Office, and an ICT Incubator Manager of the Palawan International Technology Business Incubator and Startup Hub. She is a member of the Bureau of Philippine Standards Technical Committee on Information Technology Subcommittee on Information Technology for Learning, Education, and Training of the Department of Information and Communications Technology and the Department of Trade and Industry. She also served as a member of the Commission on Higher Education's National Pool of Technical Assessors for Information Technology Program and TESTA Accredited Competency Assessor. She also served as a technical committee of the National English Roadmap of the Philippines for Common English Framework Roadmap, or CEFR, of the Commission on Higher Education. Ms. Abueg is a Commission on Higher Education K-12 Transition Scholar for Doctor in Information Technology at the Technological Institute of the Philippines, Manila. She received her Master's in Management, major in Information Technology from Philippine Christian University in 2011. She also studied Doctors of Education and Doctor of Management and Legum Baccalaureus in Palawan State University, and a graduate of Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, from the Holy Trinity University. Ms. Abueg is an author of 5 information technology books under the Unlimited Books Library Services and Publishing Incorporated and the James C. Zeville publications. She presented local and international researches on information technology, as well as technology incubator, technology commercialization, model development, data mining, information theory, and data analysis such as reliability, validity, correlation, and regression analysis. Currently, she is the president of the Philippine Society of IT Educators, or PSITE MIMAROPA. She is also a key member of the Palawenyo ICT Association, or PICTA, the vice president of the National ICT Confederation of the Philippines, or NICP, and a board member of the Philippine Society of IT Educators. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, please join me in welcoming, with virtual applause, Professor Mary Joy Abueg.
Good morning and welcome to PADYAK sa New Normal of Commission on Higher Education MIMAROPA in collaboration with Philippine Society of IT Educators MIMAROPA. First, I would like to acknowledge and give thanks to our CHED Regional Director of MIMAROPA, Attorney Joselito Aliswag, the Chief Education Program Specialist of CHED MIMAROPA, Engineer Edgar Sete, the Education Supervisor for Information Technology Education, Engineer Victor Cunanan. to my university president, Palawan State University President, Ramon M. Docto, together with the presidents and key officials of state universities and colleges, local universities and colleges, private universities and colleges, to our guests who are present today and participants, good morning. So my topic will be on the data privacy in the academic sector, its compliance and implementation. So why is data privacy important in the academic sector? So let's consider this case of a public school teacher in debt because of identity theft. So this public school teacher, due to excitement, so he posted his PRC ID or PRC license in his social media account. And after that, he received a notification from 3 banks saying that he borrowed a total of 800,000 in salary loans. Of course, he denied applying for this loan. So these are one of the examples why we should not disclose our sensitive information online, especially in social media. So imagine this person, once he received his, due to excitement, he received his PRC license and then posted it in social media. And after that, boom, he had a loan, a salary loan through this identity theft person. So aside from that, it's not just for that as well. So when we say data privacy, is also ensuring our academic website. So as you can see here, there are schools and universities that are hacked because of non-compliance when it comes to security measures, when it comes to their website. So imagine there are almost 30 Philippine schools hacked during this pandemic, no? So it is a threat to us in our academic sector. So how do we comply? So not just we comply because of we secure measures. There are guidelines given by the Department of ICT, guidelines given by TRED together with the Freedom of Information, guidelines of transparency, guidelines of National Privacy Commission. So these are all guidelines adheres to the ISO standards. When it comes to information technology security, we have ISO 27018. When it comes to security techniques on code and practice of protection of personally identifiable information. So the ISO 2718-2019 and then the ISO 2718, which is the code of practice for personal data when saving it online or in the cloud. So we also have 2 laws available in the Philippines when it comes to data privacy and security and cybersecurity. We have 10175 and 10173 for Cybersecurity Act and the Data Privacy Act. So according to the Freedom of Information released by the National Privacy Commission, imagine these are the nature of formal complaints. So formal complaints to the National Privacy Commission that part of it are coming from the education sector. So hindi natin dapat baliwalain yan kasi there are also complaints from education sector due to data breach or data breach and non-compliance of data privacy. So next, let's remove first this annotation. Okay. Okay, so there are, imagine just in 2018, so that's the update. Until now, still waiting for the update. There are 17% of government agencies and schools summoned by the National Privacy Commission due to data breaches. So imagine 70% in just 1/2 of the year. na merong data breaches when it comes to education sector. So they are summoned by the National Privacy Commission, and these are government agencies as well and schools as well. So what is the Data Privacy Act of 2012? So this is what we call the Republic Act 101/73, or it is an act protecting individual personal information in information and communications technology in the government and the private sector, creating for this purpose a National Privacy Commission and for other purposes. So remember that the National Privacy Commission is the independent body mandated to implement the Data Privacy Act. So they are the main functions of the National Privacy Commission is the rule-making body. So the advisory, when it comes to also the public education for the data privacy, adheres to the compliance and monitoring, and then investigation and complaints, as well as the enforcement of the Data Privacy Act of 2012. So who are the key actors when it comes to Data Privacy Act, or what we call the DPA? So first, we discussed the NPC, the National Privacy Commission. Then the data subjects. Who are our data subjects? So data subjects are those individual person, okay, an individual whose personal data is processed. So we are the data subject. Our students are the data subject. Our partners are the data subjects. So there is also a personal information controller. When it comes to PIC, so it is a natural or juridical person or anybody who controls the processing of data. We will discuss that later. And then the personal information processor, it is a natural, or what we call the PIP, a natural or juridical person or any other body to whom PIC may outsource or instruct the process of personal data. So let's look into that later. So what is the scope of this Data Privacy Act? So when we say Data Privacy Act, it applies to the processing of all types of personal information. So into any natural or juridical person in the country and even abroad, subject to certain qualifications. So in personal data, there are classifications. So there are 3 classifications according to law. According to RA 101/73 of the Data Privacy Act, there are 3 classifications of personal data. So first, we have the personal information. So when we say PI, or personal information, it refers to any information, whether recorded in a material form or not, which the identity of an individual is apparent or can be reasonably and directly ascertained by entity holding the information, or when they put together with the other information, would directly and certainly identify an individual. Let's say, for example, a case of cyber libel. When we say cyber libel, this pertains to the use of social media in a form of libel. For example, a person posted in a social media and says, this person, so nilibel niya yung person, this person is, dinescribe niya lahat, in-identify niya lahat, but hindi niya sinabi yung name. Okay? Hindi niya sinabi yung name. But when all this information put together, okay, it would directly and certainly identify the individual. So, that in that case, pasok ang data privacy. So, remember ha, even if hindi mention yung name mo, but your information was described and put together, that information would directly and certainly identify you as an individual. So next, we have the sensitive, sensitive personal information. When we say sensitive personal information, ito yung ating SPI. So it refers to race, ethnic origin, marital status, age, color, religious, philosophical or political affiliation, health, education, genetic, or sexual life, proceeding of any offense committed or alleged to have been committed by government issued ID. So lahat ng government issued ID are sensitive personal information. Kaya iniwasan nating mag-send on social media or posting ang ating mga government issued ID. So those established by an executive order or an act of Congress to be kept classified. So buksan natin yung ating mga nire-require sa ating mga estudyante, especially when we, on our admission, hinihingi ba natin tong sensitive personal information? Okay? Check natin sa ating mga forms. Imagine, pagtanong ng age, ilang taon ka na? Oops, data privacy, that's sensitive personal information. Imagine pag sensitive personal information, mas mataas ang fine at mas mahaba ang pagkakulong. If in case na ma-identify na merong mga illegalities and breaches. So how do we process this SPI? So kailangan, if we have our registration that requires SPI or sensitive personal information, we should have consent to the data subject. So meron tayong existing law and regulation. Bakit natin hinihingi ang age? Bakit natin hinihingi ang ethnic, marital status? Okay? Bakit natin hinihingi itong mga to? And then, kailangan meron tayong lawful processing. So, these are the ways. So, kailangan dahil meron bang lawful rights and interests, medical treatment, processing of non-stock and non-profit organization when it matters of life and health. So make sure that meron tayong existing laws and regulations, meron tayong policy, why we needed that, and why do we need that. Kailangan i-defend kung bakit, no? So not just, hindi yung, wala lang kasi naisip ko lang, okay? So check mo yung inyong mga hinihingi sa inyong data subjects. Hindi dahilan, kasi usual na namin ginagawa to, or ever since ito na yung hinihingi namin sa aming mga data subjects. So that's the reason why we need a data privacy officer. We need a privacy compliance officer to check all of this. So para kailangan yung i-defend. Why do I need this? When you submitted your data processing report sa National Privacy Commission, and it is required now, i-justify nyo bakit nyo kailangan itong hingiin sa inyong data subjects. So kailangan i-justify nyo on what particular law, what particular regulation, on what particular policy na existing na meron ang school nyo. Okay, we also have the privileged information. So according to the rules of court, remember, data received within the context of protected relationship between husband and wife. Sometimes we usually, lalo na sa office, no? Minsan, pagpasok sa opisina, sa faculty room, dinidisclose ng faculty ang problema niya sa asawa niya. Problema niya sa asawa niya sa bahay nila. So that comprises the privileged information according to the rules of court and according to Data Privacy Act. So it must be protected, no? And then, data received within the context of protected relationship between the attorney and the client, between the priest and the penitent, okay? And of course, between the doctor and the patient. This must be covered by the data privacy. So remember, do not collect if you cannot protect. So If it's not needed in your form, if it's not needed, why do you need to collect that? Or if you cannot protect that, do not collect this information to your data subjects. Okay, let's discuss in academic setting, who are our data subjects? Okay, so first, sino-sino nga ba? Of course, number one, the student. Okay, the teachers. It can be non-teaching teachers, non-teaching personnel, can be a job order, contractual, probationary, or regular. Under na sila agad ng data privacy. So parents and guardians. Applicant. Applicant can be your student applicant, your employee applicant. So kaya kailangan these data must be kept properly. Administrators and board of trustees of the colleges and universities. Visitors and guests can be visitors in website, because sometimes our website collects cookies, IP address. So walk-in can be walk-in, actual na pumapasok sa ating schools, visitors and guests, and contact persons such as the contractor, OJT partner, supplier, academic linkage, industry partners, consultants of our schools, of course, the exchange students and professors, research subjects, yung mga respondents natin when we are doing research. This covers our data subject, as well as our community extension participants in our schools, colleges, and university. So now we know who are our data subjects. No? Let's discuss sino naman ang ating personal information controller. Kanina, define natin what is a personal information controller. Now let's identify. So ang personal information controller natin is the university itself, the organization who is the SEC registered in the company. So, sinabi natin, paano yung registrar, yung HR, yung MIS head? So, they are the process owner, not the PIC. So, ang PIC natin is the university itself. So, paano nga ba? No? What is the primary obligation ng ating PIC? It says there that it must adhere, according to law, adhere to the data privacy principles when it comes to transparency, legitimate purpose, proportionality. Ano nga ba tong transparency na to? Which means, kailangan nandito yung word na consent regime. So, kailangan yung data subjects mo ay aware. This refers to consent. So, yung data subject mo give a full authority, full control over the data. So, aware of the subject, aware of the nature, and exercise their rights. So, alam nila kung saan gagamitin yung data nila. They should be aware when it comes to transparency. When it comes to legitimate purpose naman, when we say legitimate purpose, adheres to your policy. Meron bang batas na nagsasabi ba't kailangan mo to? Okay. Meron ba kayong policy within your organization? And lastly, proportionality. Ano ba itong proportionality? Is the information shall be adequate. Must be adequate. All the data that you collected must be adequate, relevant, suitable, necessary, and not excessive in nature. So, in relation to a declared and specified purpose, personal data shall be processed only in the purpose of processing could not reasonably be fulfilled by other means. So, hindi pa pwedeng excessive yung data na hinihingi natin. Kaya nga, yung iba, lalo na when it comes to research, hindi na hinihingi yung mga profile ng kanilang respondents. Kasi due to data privacy, should be adhere also to the proportionality of data privacy principles and kailangan may legitimate purpose. Bakit po kailangan itong mga specific data na kailangan po? And then of course, you need to uphold the data subject rights. So there are different rights according to law. The right to information, access, data portability, rectification, erasure blocking to subject. So when we say the rights to inform, so syempre nandoon yung privacy notice. Kailangan we have the privacy notice, we have the privacy consent should be exercised, the right to object, okay, the right not to disclose your information. So yung client nyo or yung inyong data subject has the right not to disclose their information. Right to access, the right to access data subject to see and access his or her own personal information, not to access other personal information, but their own personal information. So there are a lot of rights according to the data privacy rights. So now let's move on with the PIP, what we call the Personal Information Processor. Itong mga PIP na to, these are the government agencies that involve in our schools, universities, and colleges. So, government agency that has legal mandate to process. Okay? Bakit hinihingi yung ating mga personal information ni CHED, ni TESDA, ni DepEd, GSIS, ni SSS, BIR, Pag-ibig, and PhilHealth? Kasi merong legitimate purpose. Okay. Accrediting and auditing agencies na meron tayo within our academic setting. So, payroll bank depository, third party, yung ating academic services when it comes to our travel and tours, LMS, other outsourced services ng academic institution. HMO, yung ating mga security or insurance, so insurance company and other online platforms that we subscribe to. So those are our PIP. So yan yung mga jargons when it comes to the data privacy, the data subject, the PIC, and the PIP. So mostly, one of the example is the school records. So, kailangan meron tayong storage and disposal policy when it comes to school records. Remember, according to the RA, Republic Act 9470, when it comes to government records, it's forever. So, meron din na mga, according to sa mga librarians and registrars, meron din yan silang time frame kung hanggang kailan i-store ang mga records. Okay? So, ano-ano bang mga records yun na kailangan i-store at kailangan na i-dispose. Okay? So, clinical records of students must be also protected. So, looking at check natin in actual, look at our universities, colleges, or academic institution. May proper ba ng storage? Nakalock ba? Naka-steel cabinet ba? Or nilalagbook ba kung sino yung pumapasok o sino yung kumukuha ng data? So, kailangan meron tayong policy for that. So, release of top-notchers or students. Sometimes, di ba, the schools posted the photos of our students who are top-notchers, who are passers in the board exams. So, nandoon nakikita mo sa labas ng gate, nakapost yung pictures together with the full name of your student. So, make sure before you post that you have consent. Okay? Consent sa students, and if it's below 18 years old, kailangan may consent din with the guardian and their parents. Security issues in the buildings. Usong-uso ngayon ang logbook. So pagpasok mo kay guard, logbook. So pagsulat mo ng logbook, dahil nga ngayon ay pandemic, usong-uso din ngayon talaga ang tracing using logbook. So previously, nakita mo yung name kung sino yung naunang pumasok, nakita mo yung phone number. So kung ano pa yung mga data na hiningi ng academic institution na nandoon sa logbook, ay maka-capture ng sumunod na magla-login. That's why it's better na supposed to be dapat magbigay ka lang ng small slip, ando doon yung data, and then ibibigay kay guard. So that's the time na si guard ang maglalag sa logbook, not the data subject itself. Why? Kasi nakikita ko yung data ng nauna sa akin. Kuha ko yung phone number. Merong case na nangyari yan na complaint sa Data Privacy Commission na nagpanggap siya na siya ay HR ng isang institution. So lahat ngayon pinadalhan niya na merong filing fee, na merong fee for application. So ang dami niyang nabiktima. Why? Because of the logbook. Nakuha niya yung phone numbers nitong mga taong pumasok sa building. So be careful. Kaya suggest your security guards na small slip kung ano yung hinihingi. So that yung susunod na data subject, hindi niya makikita yung data na nauna sa kanya. Okay, the issue of recycled papers. Recycled papers. Okay, sa accreditation ng PASCO, importante itong recycled paper, di ba? Kasi sabi nila, kailangan daw i-recycle yung mga papel as part of their accreditation. Ginagamit yung mga recycled papers for green technology, for green university, green school, and green colleges or green academic institution. So however, check mo din. Check mo din yung mga recycled papers. Meron bang sensitive information dyan? Meron bang mga photocopy na IDs? Meron bang mga sensitive personal information? Merong nag-file ng case sa National Privacy Commission. Meron kasing ginawang investigation ang isang HR together with the faculty and then complaints. Nandoon lahat kung ano yung mga complaints sa faculty at kung ano yung mga binigay na sanction sa faculty. And yet, ginamit kasi to as recycled paper. So, ginamit as recycled paper, nabasa ngayon ng iba, that creates chismis to the other data subjects. So, yun yung mga iwasan natin. And then raffle stubs, usong-uso sa school sa mga raffles. So after that, ang issue dito ay pwede naman ang raffle stub. However, ang issue is sino magkikip ng data. Another thing is that paano mo to i-dispose? Tatapon mo lang ba to? What if merong dumpster diver yung kinukuha nila sa yung mga data, right? Tinapon mo siya, hindi properly disposed. Okay? So, another issue, ito na yung tulad ng sinabi natin kanina, the academic websites with weak authentication is also discussed by Sir Jan previously. The viewing of student records in public, that forms of physical security. So, accidentally sent an email attachment or unauthorized disclosure. Kaya it is also encouraged that you have your corporate emails. So, corporate emails ng academic institution. Wala tayong data sharing agreement between our third parties. That's another incident. So, make sure before you MOA or Memorandum of Agreement, Memorandum of Understanding with your partners that collects data, make sure na meron kang data sharing agreement and privacy notice as well. So, next. So, here are some of the law related to data privacy. No? So, when it comes to photo and video, RA 995, when it comes to security, these are the standards that we need to follow, the ISO standards. The blurring of face, especially in a video or photo. So, this Philippines Constitution right to privacy. The disposal of data, hanggang kailan natin siya ikikip, that forms in the RA 9470, look into that. The disposal of our electronic equipment, our computers, data, hardware, and disposal of anything that is tangible. So that forms in manual of the DNR. The transmittal of data, We have the Republic Act 8792 or the E-Commerce Act of 2000. That's why it's not advisable to send your important data or files using your, for example, yung mga students natin, we allow them to send on social media. So make sure that it is on email because according to RA 8792, all na na-send sa email ay considered as valid and no need no need of actual signature. So, okay. So, ano nga ba tong issue when it comes to CCTV? So, halos lahat tayo in our academic institution have CCTV. So, make sure that we establish a legitimate purpose. So, when it comes to CCTV. So, kailangan nag-implement organizational, technical, and security measures. So, with legitimate purpose. So, lagi yun lang naman eh. Kailangan we have our school policy. Sa ating mga classroom, meron tayong CCTV. But, tandaan nyo, we have the transparency or consent regime. So, ito yung CCTV mo, make sure sa baba, meron kang consent na nandito yung CCTV, naka-on, 24 hours, for what purpose, ano yung legitimate purpose. Not just having a CCTV inside the room. Make sure that meron kang naka-post na particular below the CCTV. Why is CCTV needed in that particular room? So, meron kang legitimate purpose. Okay. So, like for posting of the list of admitted students. So, naging issue din to. So, sometimes they posted it on social media, they posted it on website. So, nandoon yung full name, nandoon yung address ng bata, nandoon yung age ng bata, okay, na admitted students. So, make sure it's nandoon yung proportionality principle. Yung pinost mo kung ano lang yung needed. Like say for example, ano bang needed na kailangan i-inform them that they are admitted? Of course, their name. Or kailangan pa ba yung passing rate? Bakit? Ano yung papasok naman dito yung transparency and legitimacy. Do they have consent prior to the exam? Prior to admission, do they have consent or not? So, proportionality. Bakit ko kailangan ilagay doon yung address ng bata sa posting and bulletin board? So, make sure nandoon yung principle of proportionality. So, then it must be, remember, necessary, adequate, and not excessive in relation to the purpose. Next, National Privacy Commission issued again on how to protect patient data from unauthorized disclosure together with the Department of Health. So, ito minsan lagi ang nangyayari sa school, no? Bakit ayaw niyo sabihin kung sino yung nag-positive? Bakit ayaw niyo sabihin yung pangalan kung sino yung nag-positive? Because of Data Privacy Act. So according to Department of Health, together with the National Privacy Commission, so sabi nila, regularly remind officials and employees of their ethical and legal duty to protect the patient data. So only disclose patient data to proper authorities in appropriate areas. Not sa Facebook, not sa social media, and not sa group chat. So make sure in a proper authorities and appropriate areas na kailangan when it comes matter of health, matter of death. So, nandoon yan. So, si DOH also presented a guidelines in rule number 3 when it comes to the right to privacy when it comes to protecting patient data when it comes to COVID-19. So, kasi ang daming nagpa-positive ngayon within the school. So, nag-aaway-aaway na sometimes yung mga faculty. Bakit ayaw nyo sabihin kung sino yung positive? Bakit ganito? Bakit ganyan? So, ang daming questions. So, because of Data Privacy Act. pwede nyo siguro sabihin personal. Pero kung kailangan i-announce nyo, that's illegal. So tandaan, merong penalty for that, especially when it comes to personal information and sensitive personal information. So imagine the minimum, pwede kang makulong ng 1 taon up to 6 years. Pwede kang mag-fine ng 500,000 up to 5 million pesos. That's the reason why it is important to have a data privacy officer in each academic institution. So siya ang bahala niyan, siya ang foresee or siya ang mag-overlook sa lahat ng ito, sa lahat ng information that we collect in our academic institution. So, National Privacy Commission also provided an updates on online learning guidelines. So when it comes to how to prioritize your data, so kailangan meron kang codes, guideline, policy, and on the use of your cameras, ano yung mga policy. So these are the guidelines advice to school to enforce on their social media policy. So lastly is to prioritize data privacy in your academic institution. So it says that it is discouraged by the commission of using the social media account. However, if it is a social media account of the school and pinost dyan yung mga information, that's different from your personal social media account. Okay, so another guidelines issued by the National Privacy Commission when it comes to protect the student privacy and reduce the data breaches in the school. So there are a lot of advisory when it comes to that, like the announcement and posting of personal information as we discussed earlier, the downloading of personal data that is stored in our learning management systems. So ito yung mga system na ginagamit natin when it comes to online learning, submissions of all the assignments and projects of the students, submissions via social media platform are discouraged. Posting and sharing of personal data such as photos, videos, sometimes yung mga teacher tuwan-tuwa, ay, pinost ko yung klase ko. Ando doon silang lahat, nagklase ako today. So ang daming gumagawa niyan ngayon, pinopost nila yung class nila in their personal account, in their personal social media account. Yet, these students, sometimes these students are minor. Nagpaalam ka ba? May consent ka ba? Nagpaalam ka ba sa mga magulang niya na i-post mo yung kanilang photo? Kasi photo is part of the information of your students. So, or your data subjects. So, kailangan nagpaalam ka. Kasi sometimes may mga teacher na tuwan-tuwa, pinagpo-post nila lahat ng klase nila sa kanila. Okay. Next, make sure that it has consent. So another thing is that the code of conduct when it comes to schools, so you can check that on the National Privacy Commission website. So nilagay nila dyan on how, recommendations, that you need to create a data breach response team. So for example, may mga data breaches, saan sila pwedeng mag-report? Saan pwedeng mag-report si teachers? Saan pwedeng mag-report si students when it comes to data breach? So if in case na may incident na nangyari ng ganyan. So do we have policy, existing policy for our social media platforms used in our classroom or used in our online classes? Do we have online policy on our what we call on our online class? Meron ba tayong policy for that? Meron ba tayong security audit to test the privacy of our learning platforms? Nagkakandak ba tayo ng privacy impact assessment? Nagkakandak ba tayo ng privacy impact assessment sa ating university or sa ating academic institution? Nagvo-vulnerability testing ba ang ating mga IT? So, these are some of the measures. So, na recommended by the National Privacy Commission. So ito na po yung diniscuss kanina ni Sir John. There are do's and don'ts when it comes for online learning. So do's and don'ts for students, teacher, parents, legal, guardians, and school. So when it comes to, right now, we have the flexible learning. Dapat meron tayong policy when it comes to flexible learning. So, especially ngayon, if our academic institution is a government agency, mas mahigpit, may mga nire-require pa ang government when it comes to security of personal data. Okay. So, dapat to it-recommend sa ISO 27018 when it comes to security measures of your organization, of your institution. So there are requirements on how to do that. So first, through its head of agency, the president or the head of agency must designate a data privacy protection officer, the DPO. The data protection officer, why? Kasi if in case wala tayong DPO, who will be in charge? Of course, the president. Okay? So siya ang masisisi ng lahat. Kapag wala tayong data protection officer to oversee all of these data breaches, to oversee all of this data that we collect. Kasi kailangan yan nakadeclare. Transparency, proportionality, nakadeclare yan. So, magagawa pa ba ni President yan? Of course, hindi. That's why you need to designate a data protection officer. Second, you need to conduct a privacy impact assessment for each program. So for each program, for each colleges, kasi for each program, sa isang program, madaming hinihingi na forms. So kailangan mag-conduct ka ng privacy impact assessment for each. No? So para to measure within the agency that involves, ano ba yung mga personal data para we look into it. Kailangan pa ba natin to? Why do we collect this? Kung hindi na, let's remove this in our forms. So create a privacy and data protection policy that is important. So pag hindi ka nag-conduct ng privacy impact assessment sa iyong academic institution, hindi ka makaka-create ng iyong privacy policy and data protection policy. So it is important why we need to conduct a privacy impact assessment. So hindi valid ang iyong privacy policy or data protection policy if hindi ka mismo nag-conduct ng privacy impact assessment sa iyong academic institution. So dapat mauna si PIA bago si policy. Next, conduct ang annual mandatory agency-wide training on privacy. Remember, annual yan ito din ay reminder sa ating mga human resource management officer, yung ating mga HR. Conduct an annual mandatory agency-wide training on privacy and data protection policy. Lalo na yung mga ating incoming faculty. So kailangan informed din sila when it comes to policy of data protections. So after that, nire-register yan sa National Privacy Commission. Because meron tayong Data Privacy Act, we have the implementing rules and guidelines when it comes to the compliance with the Data Privacy Act. So lastly, cooperate with the Commission when it comes to privacy and data protection. So to sum up all of this, so meron tayong 5 pillars when it comes to data privacy, accountability, and compliance. What are those 5 pillars? Yun din yung diniscuss natin kanina. In reference to these 5 pillars, first we need to have a DPO, PIA, and then PMP, ang ating mga policy, then implement data privacy and protection measures. So dapat ini-implement yan. Tinatry sometimes, no? Kung na-hack ba yung website or ano ba yung mga ways na physical and technical ways na pwedeng ma-breach yung ating mga data within the academic institution. And fifth is the exercise of breach reporting procedures. So these are the 5 pillars of compliance when it comes to data privacy. That's all for that this morning. Thank you so much and be safe.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Joy, Ma'am Mary Joy Abweg, for a very comprehensive and informative discussion about data privacy in the academic sector. Indeed, we need to know our rights and the laws behind this to understand how to be protected. The scenario happening right now dramatically affects the people in Mimaropa and other parts of the world. So protecting our personal information is our security. The academe should be the one to educate and provide adequate efforts to protect the personal information of their clientele from loss, misuse, unauthorized access or disclosure, alteration, destruction, and other risks. The identification of government offices and policies concerning data privacy is a great help. I believe that our participants learned a lot from our speakers today.